Hostericulai scorbutiki. Ahoy there, scurvy lubbers. Let's continue where we left off. So we are now on the tall rock, the tall, cliffside on Monkey Island, where you drop the boulders off onto the work of work of modern art, and then it launches the rocks, toward the banana tree to get the bananas, but also you can also sink your ship this way. So that's the screen we're on. If you're looking at the rock that you carried over to the spot where it can be pushed off, it's the same rock I put there. It's idan saxon called irik posui. It's the same rock which I placed there. And then it looks like someone put this here on purpose. I think this is examining it for the first time, you're noticing that it seems like it's intentionally placed there. Aliquis ut videtur id hic posuit de industria. And someone, as it seems, placed it here, literally like out of industry, but this is the out of like I don't know, having good work ethic, but this is the phrase that you use to mean on purpose in Latin. The idea that someone's doing it with thought and intention. It wasn't just random happenstance. So de industria, on purpose. And then if you try to pick it up again, it was enough trouble getting it over here. Id huc portare fuitsatos deficere. It was difficult enough carrying it here. I don't think I want it. Id nolo. I don't want it. Rock, saxon. Hippo rocks. Struin saxoro. A pile of rocks. And then when you do launch the rock to hit the banana tree, wow, looked like it hit the big banana tree on the beach. Papai, in litor illa magna pala videtur ictese. Oops, I felt a sneeze coming on and it didn't happen. I hate that. It seems to have struck that on the shore. It seems to have struck that big banana tree. Pala is the proper Latin word for banana tree, at least the kinds of banana trees in India that the Romans knew about. It's a very rare word because it's not, ariena, the word for banana, and then the word for the tree, pala. They're not things the Romans probably encountered that often, but they did know words for them. At least the ancient varieties of bananas that would have existed in India and the ancient Near East. They may have known about. Now it is a homonym. The word pala it's a homonym with the word for shovel. And there is a shovel as an inventory item that you get earlier in the game during the 3 trials. Hopefully it doesn't cause too much confusion for people who are unfamiliar with the rarer word for banana tree. They don't think that there's a big shovel on the beach. Hopefully from context it's clear that that's what you call a banana tree. And then and then I bet the odds against that are incredible. The odds against hitting it. Let's see. Probabilitas quidem parvafuit ut vix credidissem nisi meis oculis vidissem. So the probability was so small that I would have hardly believed unless I had seen with my own eyes. Probabilitas, in classical Latin, it doesn't necessarily have like the it's sort of like mathematical meaning of like statistical probability necessarily. It didn't quite have that meaning yet, but it kind of had the meaning of how plausible or credible does a claim someone makes seem to you. But I think it still fits in this context because it's if Guybrush were to tell someone about what happened, that he hit this banana tree by dropping a rock on this piece of art, and it launched the rock toward this banana tree on a beach that's on the other side of the island. It wouldn't be a very credible story. So I think probabilitas does still work in that sense. Odds. Yeah, I mean the Romans loved gambling and stuff, but yeah, I couldn't find references to them like. Maybe they had words for like calculating percentages and odds and stuff. I don't know if that would have made sense for this situation either though. And then if you try to hit the banana tree again, it says it came close, but I think it'll hit it. I don't think it'll hit it again. That shot was 1 in a zillion. So non cum sic iterare possem, et onsi deciens centena milia saxorum jaculatosem. And sorry, that line before it. Prope cecidit, sed iter victur esse non puto. So it landed nearby, but I don't think it is going to hit again. And then never would I be able to repeat this in the same way. Repeat things that way, even if I were to throw a million rocks. So zillion, rather than having like I don't think the Romans had made up numbers without actual, numerical values like we do with like, zillion and a bajillion and all these, words we have in English. But so I just went with millions, and the proper way to say million in Latin is literally 1,000 is how they describe million in classical times. Let's see. And then I'll just put it here. Hic modo bono. I'm just putting it here. There's already one there, so we try to move a rock over when there's already one there. Alio di kioniost. There's another one already there. And then what would I want with a big rock? Cur magnum saxum winning. Why would I want a big rock? And then so the rubber tree joke, where Guybrush steps off the edge of the cliffside, and then he's bounced back onto, and it shows like a Sierra-style death screen saying that you've lost the game. And that's actually, the text that's on that is written on the sprite itself. So to translate that, I'll have to edit the artwork later. But yeah, it's a Sierra-style death stream, and then Guybrush bounces back up over it, and then his only explanation is just rubber tree, that he was bounced back by a rubber tree. So I felt like I had to have a longer explanation of what happened, because it's just like our familiarity with like modern types of rubber and its properties and its relationship to rubber trees, and those aren't connections that maybe would have Romans would have had immediately on the top of their minds, they would have thought about or known about. And even if you're, obviously the people playing this game aren't ancient people, but when you're using the language, it's like if I just said like the species name of the rubber tree, Hevia brasiliensis, and just had that on its own, I feel like that wouldn't feel like enough of an explanation. So I wrote out me remisit arbor gomosa quaedon, cui nomen specificonst Hevia brasiliensis. So a certain gum-filled tree sent me back, whose scientific name, whose species name is Hevia brasiliensis. So it's not as funny, right? But I don't know how there's something about like the cartoon logic of the rubber tree and stuff, and the way it's can be expressed in English that's fun. But like at least this Latin explanation, at least somewhat explains what would happen to so an ancient person might kind of understand. Oh, okay, the tree was full of gummy sap, and so it bounced it back. I don't know. So, and then and if you're not from if you're as a modern person, if you're not familiar with the species name of a rubber tree or how to refer to a rubber tree in Latin, this explanation of what kind of tree it is will hopefully clue you in. And then Herman Toothrot can appear on the screen, so Aluminium Toothrot. And then when you hit your ship with a rock, all Guybrush says is whoops. And it was hard to find just like a Roman interjection that has the same vibes as whoops in Latin. I just went with oh, because that's a pretty versatile exclamation in Latin, and I think it works for like when you messed up. It's like oh, I don't know. I thought it would work. Okay, and then we're about to get to a very, very famous line in the game. Looking at the giant monkey head, and Guybrush says, "Why, that's the second biggest monkey head I've ever seen." So I know this is this is one of those lines that people are probably anticipating the Latin translation to. It's also like it's idiomatically, grammatically, it's kind of, I don't know. I wasn't able to find like a lot of I wasn't able to find a lot of evidence that the Romans like described things with this kind of structure of just saying, oh, this is the second greatest, the second largest, third smallest, fourth most famous. Like it just doesn't seem to be like the kind of thing they said using, the structure in English of an ordinal number combined with a superlative. But they could describe people as second to someone else, like using like secundos, like I don't know, like Ajax is second only to Achilles, and then you could I don't know if I found an example of this, but it made sense to me that maybe you could use an ablative of respect with that. So Ajax was second in strength to Achilles, and then there's you can say like the second among a group or the third among a group, and you'd use de in the ablative for ablative plural, describe the group that this is the second one of. So with all of those kind of attested grammatical and idiomatic structures, I did my best to express this idea of being the second biggest monkey head that Guybrush has ever seen. So omnibus de capitibus uncum quae vidi simiarum hoc est magnitudine secundum. So out of all the heads ever which I have seen of monkeys, this is, in terms of magnitude, the second. So it's kind of a more, roundabout, longer way of saying it. I know the word order, I kind of, might expect umpon to be in the relative clause, and simiarum is should be right by capitibus. But I'm just trying to avoid, like I mentioned before, awkward elisions. Like if this is going to be spoken out loud, I want the lines to, for the most part, be easy to pronounce. And pronouncing elisions properly, well, if we even know how to pronounce them properly, I'm doing my best to like pronounce them myself, the way it's kind of proposed in Vox Latina, the Sidney Allen book. But I know my pronunciation overall isn't perfect to that, and I don't know. I'm doing my best reconstructed classical pronunciation based off of just kind of what I learned in college, and then sort of more trying to be accurate, trying to nasalize those M sounds and things like that. But anyway, yeah. Omnibus de capitibus unquam quae vidi simiarum, hoc est magnitudine secundum. Of all the heads ever which I have seen of monkeys, this is second in magnitude. So hopefully people appreciate my efforts. I think there's a lot of tension surrounding the more famous lines. Those are the things people might want to quote in Latin, and so hopefully I want to do a good job with those in particular. So hopefully people like that translation. And then gigantic monkey head, imane caput simii, so the monstrous head of a monkey, but then imanos then takes on the meaning of like monstrously big or whatever. So gigantic monkey head. If you were to use the adjective like giganticos in Latin, at least in classical times, it was never used to describe large things. It was, a specific reference to the specific mythological characters, the gigantes, the children of Gaia, like Briarios and stuff in Greek mythology. It wasn't just a term you could just throw around to describe anything that's big. It referred, it was referring to the specific mythological figures. And then the jungle, Sylvain, and then, so looking at, so this is on the screen where you, outside the gate to the monkey head, where there's lots of skulls and corpses and things strewn about. And so, looking at the skulls, yipes, wah, and then skulls, calvarias, and then more skulls, eep, I just, eho, why, eho, all these interjections of expressing grief or dismay or surprise, calvarias, and then it won't move that way. Sic moveri non potest. This is the nose of the totem pole that you pull on to open the gate. So once again, this is one of the parts of the game that has aged the least well. Is this, just culturally insensitive at best portrayal of the cannibals that are just like a mishmash of not just Caribbean cultures, but Polynesian cultures and like other North American cultures. All so you have these totem poles with these big pointy noses. I'll talk about how I translated that in just a second. But yeah, so it's I don't know, like I'm doing my best to like accurately translate the stuff with the cannibals without making things worse. I'm not trying to inject any more sort of problematic stuff in the game that wasn't already there, and but yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, I can't move the nose that way. Sic moveri non potest. And then wow, I assume this is what you say when you get it to work, when you pull on it and it opens, or when you get the monkey to pull on it. Bye. And then I don't think I could get it to stay on there, so I assume this is if you try to use an inventory item to like weigh down the nose to keep it open. Non puto me facere posut hoc in illo maniat. So I don't think myself able to make it so that this stays on that. So yeah. yeah, and I'm using just neuter demonstratives, which hopefully, the gender of the object you try to put on it could be anything, but, hopefully this works as just a generic message. And then the nose, nason. And then, so in translating like totem pole, so like, I'm sure there probably is an attested, like Neo-Latin phrase used to describe like the totem poles made by native North American cultures and stuff. But it occurred to me maybe I could translate these with something from Roman culture, because uh, um, these totem poles with their big noses kind of look like columnae rostratai, which were these columns, ceremonial columns the Romans would make that would have sculpted images of ships, call it the bow of a ship, the prow of a ship, the front pointy part of a ship, which the Romans called the rostrum, the beak of the ship. Sticking on these ceremonial columns. They have these little ships, ship beaks sticking out of them in all angles. In a very similar way to how these totem poles with their pointy noses look. So I decided to translate it as columnum rostratum, beaked column, which is an artifact from Roman culture. So making the Latin version of the game, I'll just pull from Roman culture. It's kind of funny too, in the mentions of like sacrifices and stuff that the cannibals perform. So much of the aspects of their culture that's kind of presented as is supposed to be presented as strange and off-putting or whatever, it would have been perfectly normal things amongst the Romans, which is kind of fascinating, that dynamic. But so I translated these pointy-nosed totem poles as columnum rostratum, the beaked column, because that's kind of what they look like. And then their corpses, cadaver. And then on the screen there is, why is it scrolling so weird? Okay, and then there's a sign, private property, worshipping is permitted, but please do not enter the monkey head, GP LeChuck. And then this is formatted, there's all these notes and memos in the games that you can pick up. And the way the sign is written, it's signed by LeChuck. It's very similar to that. But we'll get to those notes later. I tried to kind of reformat those to feel more like to follow the conventions of ancient Roman letter writing. But I didn't think that made sense for this sign. So let's just look how I translated it. So private property. I decided to call it a private garden, hortus privatus. And I know sometimes horti in the plural is used to describe maybe like a public park or whatever, but hortus. So I was debating whether it should be horti or hortus, but certainly private gardens are usually described in the singular. So I don't know, but that's how I hortus privatus is what I settled on. And then worshipping is permitted, but please do not enter the monkey head. So venerari licet, sed null entrare quaeso caput simiae. So it is allowed to worship, but do not enter, please, the head of the monkey. And then instead of just signing it with LeChuck's name, I wrote Iusu piratai phantasmatici LeChuck, by the order of the ghost pirate LeChuck. And I know phantasmaticus in attested Latin, always has it has the meaning of imaginary. But I think to anyone who saw it, like its connection to phantasma, to a Greek word for a ghost, I think, I don't know. I think that they'd understand it as also having the meaning of or related to ghosts. Right, before it had its then extended meaning of imaginary, right? Because it's like, oh, you're talking about ghosts, you're talking about phantoms, it's just in your imagination, right? But I assume the more literal meaning of it could have been possible, even though we don't see it used in a text-to-text that way. But either way, if the other meaning is much more prominent, it's still kind of funny to have LeChuck call himself the imaginary pirate. Maybe it ties into some of the Monkey Island 2 ending stuff too. Maybe I can justify it that way. So instead of GP LeChuck, I wrote out Pirata Pantasmatici. I think I do maybe abbreviate against later in some of those letters, but here I just LeChuck is undeclinable, so I wanted to put genitive endings on something, and so I just wrote what GP stands for, and I said this is by the order of LeChuck. This is an edict rather than just like a note that he signed. So I thought that made more sense for the sign. And then for the sign itself, this particular sign was written on. It's like a board. It's like written on a piece of wood. So I decided just tabellon for this word for sign. I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I'm not sure how to translate all these messages and labels on things, calling them signs, but I don't know if there's a catch-all term in in Latin for a sign. I think you kind of have to specify, it's a poster, it's a libellum murale, it's like a wall, a little book on a wall, or you have to like specify what it's written on, or maybe get away, scripta, it's written things, I don't know. Signal, doesn't usually mean like a written sign, so that wouldn't, so I don't know. But in this case, since it is literally like a board, it is a piece of wood, tabellon, is how I translated sign here. And then when you do have the monkey hanging off the nose to hold the gate open for you, Guybrush can look at him and, boy, he must be tired. Pur non è defesost. So, by Pollux, is he not tired? Has he not tired out? And then, ook ook eep, I just Latinized the spelling of the onomatopoeia, ook ook eep. And he's a monkey, or I guess she's a monkey, Simeon. Simios, with a masculine ending for monkey, does exist, and the gender of this monkey isn't really specified in the game. Well, I guess it is. Guybrush does say he here, but I don't know. Generally, the animal is described with this first declension feminine noun, simia. So Simeon. So if you want to, based off of the grammatical gender of the animal, if you want to say she for the monkey, that would make sense. Oh, I guess I didn't though, right? Since I did defess, I did translate it as if it's he. Maybe, Maybe defesos would be better, because it is, Guybrush is describing a grammatically feminine object, and there's nowhere else are we told the monkey is male, explicitly. So maybe I'll change that. Non è defesas. Isn't she tired, or isn't it, tired? I'll go with that now that I think about it. And then, okay, so then this joke also, I was like racking my brain. Okay, so you're looking at these skewered corpses on spikes, and shish keBob, shish keJoe, shish keLarry. It's like, this wasn't going to work to make a literal try to literally translate, find some Neo-Latin or come up with a calc to describe the dish shish kebab, and but still make the pun work with different names. So so I decided to come up with just like these kind of alliterative phrases describing people with various names, skewered skewered by various pointy things. So Ecce Paulus and Paolo. Look, it's Paul on a pail, Paul on a stake. Ecce Laurentius in Lancia. Look, it's Lawrence on a on a lance. I know it's not technically. Well, these might be spears. I don't know. From the artwork, they're just pointy sticks. Palo is probably a stick that's stuck in the ground is more probably a better translation. But I'm just trying to find the alliteration. And then I wanted to use Laurentios, at least have something that's in common with one of the names from the original. And then I think it's fun in some of the translations in other modern languages, they just choose just other names that are common in their language. So I think, but they still use shish kebab as the main joke. So I think in Italian it's like shish kebab, and then it's like shish keDino or something, which I thought was funny. Although I think the French translation doesn't try to translate the joke. Or one of the translations doesn't try to translate it, or doesn't go with the shish kebab joke and doesn't try to translate it with anything else. It just has Guybrush say like, oh gruesome, it's a corpse, impaled corpse or something. Like they didn't bother to try to translate it. But anyway, and then Ecce Jacobus in Jaculo. So look, Jacob on a throwing spear. And once again, it's a stick stuck in the ground. It's not a throwing spear, but whatever. I think hopefully these work. They always play in order, no matter which one you look at first. So you'll always get the Paulus and Paolo line first. So you'll get the the most accurate term for what you're looking at first, and you see the alliteration with his name, and so you'll get the sense of what this joke is supposed to be. So hopefully that works for that joke. And then here you're looking at either the idols in front of the monkey head or the totem poles. I can't remember, but you see the artist carved his name on it, and then made by Red Skull, made by Sharptooth. So those are two of our cannibals. And I wanted to follow the convention that you see in a lot of ancient Greek and Latin artwork, where in buildings and structures, where usually it's the object kind of speaks for itself, and it has the name of the artist, and it's like so and so made me. So it's the object speaking for itself, saying who they were made by. So I used the me fecit, made me. And then I decided to translate the names of the cannibals with Greek names, just because Greek is not existing Greek names, but it's easier to form neologisms with Greek roots, right? Because Greek allowed that as a productive thing, where you could stick roots together to make compound nouns. So I went with Greek names for the cannibals. So Red Skull I translated as Erythrocranios, red skull, cranium skull. So Erythrocranios me fecit, and then made by Sharptooth. And the scientific Greek genus name of great white sharks is already a word, already means Sharptooth, so I just went with that. And it also works because this character's mask that he wears kind of looks like a shark face. So it makes sense to evoke sharks as well. Carcharodon me fecit. So Sharptooth made me. And then Toothrat, Armenian Toothrat. You know, you can show up on lots of the screens in the island. And then for some reason at this point in the script, you have the dialogue with the dog in the scum bar, very different part of the game. And I just, once again, I was, I guess with these animal noises, I'm just Latinizing the spelling of the onomatopoeia. So, you know, waroof, roof, waroof, roof, you know. So I don't know if I'm going to make all these dog noises right now. Sniff and oderator. Yeah, so I just Latinize the spelling of those. And then, you know, of course, mixed in with the dogs barking, you know, just say Melee Island. So, you know, Insola Mele, La Chocker. So, oh, that's self-explanatory. Then I just Latinize the spelling. Okay, and then, okay, and now we're back on the ship. We're back on the boat. And you're in the kitchen, and this is the big pot where you put all the ingredients to make the voodoo spell that takes you to Monkey Island. So Guybrush looks at it and says, "It's full of crap. I hope I don't have to eat this." And then I went, "Est scrutorum plenum, quae spero mi hedenda non fore." So it's full of scruta are they're like, it's like used stuff. So you know, scrutarios sells used things, and scruta, it has kind of the connotation of old, like, broken trash or whatever. So if it was a good translation of this, you know, this cauldron's just full of just random inventory items. So it is like, you know, a big, it's full of trash. Felt like a good way to translate crap here, rather than, you know, being literal or whatever. Scriptorum plenum, quae spero mi hedendo non fore. So it's full of trash, which I hope I will not have to eat. So I have, you know, a gerundive there used for expressing obligation, you know, have to, and pairing that with the future infinitive fore to go spero, which I hope, yeah, I am not going to have to eat, which I believe is grammatically and idiomatically sound to say it that way. And then it looks like your run-of-the-mill ship's cooking pot. Videtur usitatum navis aenum coquinario. So it seems to be a usual bronze pot, bronze cooking pot, bronze pot for cooking on a ship. And the usual ship's cooking pot. And yeah, aenos seem to be the best word to describe the type of, like, giant cauldron that was depicted on the screen, using that illustrated companion to the Greek and Latin lexicon book, which I can't remember the author's name off the top of my head. I linked to it. I linked to the Google Books. I put that link on one of the earlier videos when I first mentioned it. But yeah, so the aenos looked the most similar to what was on the screen, so it felt like that was the word for it. And then I'm not putting anything else in that pot. Nil plus in aeno ponere volo. So I don't want to place. I want to place nothing more in the pot. And then I don't have a recipe. I wouldn't know where to begin making soup. Compositione coquinaria calio sine qua neque jus sperare scio. So I am lacking a culinary composition, lacking written instructions for cooking, without which I don't even know how to make soup, how to prepare soup. I believe, compositio coquinaria. I found that somewhere as an attested way of describing a recipe. I know earlier in the captain's log, I used the phrase tabula gastronomica to express the idea of a recipe, but that was to make it feel parallel with tabula geografica, a map, a geographic table. So, but here for this purposes, I used a more common word for recipe. Either I can't remember now if this is classically attested or if this is like a common like Neo-Latin way of describing a recipe. But either way. And then cooking pot, aenum coquinario, and then nice and hot. Es bene cálidos, it's pretty hot. Ouch, that's hot. Papá, es cálidos. Wow, ow, that's hot. And then, come to think of it, they're only dancing lessons. So the dancing lessons map he used to find the treasure of Mealy Island earlier. It's one of the things you can just throw into the pot. So you can just get rid of stuff, either throwing into the pot or throwing into the fire. Stuff you don't need, it lets you just get rid of. Pieces of paper they let you use to get fire to carry to the fuse to light the cannon too. But utiam puto opus mihi non est nunc hoc praescripto saltatorio. So as I now think, there isn't need to me now for this dance instruction. So praescriptum saltatorium is an attested phrase I found to describe dancing instructions. And once again, this is like different from, I'm going to have the joke of tabula choreografica too, but that's just to be parallel with geografica. And in the other contexts, it makes more sense just to use a more normal way of describing these things. And then the only dancing lesson. And then why burn perfectly good food? Cur sine causa qui vincendum. Why would I burn food without reason, without cause? Which I think conveys the same idea. And then I really want to kill myself. So I don't know if this is if you try to touch the fire or what, but Certe, queen me interficio. Certainly, why don't I kill myself? And then I might need this later. Fieri potestut opus hac re michiterum sit. So it may come to be, it may happen to be that there's need for me for this. Again, there may be need for me for this thing. Fieri pot. I don't know if this is the first time you've seen this phrase pop up in my translation, but I feel like I use it a lot just because there's a lot of characters speculating about the future of, I might need this, I may need that, and this is a useful idiomatic phrase for that to describe things, that might happen. And then let's see. I'll just burn them all, and I'm not sure which items he's talking about. These might be like the memos, perhaps. But omnia crimentur, may all things be burned. I just went with that. And then I don't think it's going to catch on fire. Hoc arsurve se non puto. So I don't think this is about to burn. And then, ouch, that's hot. Papai es cálidos. And then red hot fire. igne incandente, so like glowing hot fire. And then, okay, and then when you find the breakfast cereal, I love this stuff when I was a kid. I fufares compureron me valde delectavant. So these, we saw this word before, these bran flakes, these fufares, when I was a boy, delighted me greatly. And then I like the way it chewed up the roof of your mouth. So I went, palato quidem placebant, quod tamen imicem mansi remordebant. So to describe something as pleasing to the palate, I believe this is found in Petronius, but yeah, indeed, they were pleasing to the palate, which, however, when chewed, they would bite back in turn. So I don't know. I came up with this idea of like this pun involving pleasing to the palate, but then the roof of your mouth, like the palate of your mouth, being used in this relative clause. So they were pleasing to they were indeed pleasing to the palate, which, however, the fufares mansi, the which having been chewed, they would bite back in turn. So, so my translation back into English sounds awkward, but I think it sounds more elegant in the Latin as a funny joke to use this idiomatic expression of being pleasing to the palate, with it, and then switch to like literally talking about the palate being chewed up by the cereal. And then crunch, which is crepitus masticationis, so the crunching sound, creaking sound, whatever type of sound of chewing, crepitus masticationis. And then great, yo optime, oh hooray, hooray, very good, a toy prize inside. Ecce premium lusori venest. So behold, a player's prize is inside. And then I'm too sick to eat anymore. Iam tantum nauseot plus esse non possem. So now I am so nauseous to such an extent that I could not eat more. And then, yeah, so here's my phrase to translate the breakfast cereal again. Yentaculum fufurium cereal, or literally a branny breakfast, a breakfast made out of bran flakes. And then, let's see, and then, after you found the prize, if you eat him again, it just kind of repeats it. Hifufaes compueram, me valde delectabant, palato quinem placebant, quod tamen imicem mansi remanebant. And then the cupboard, which is basically a small cabinet, so armariolo, so seemed to be the best word to describe what a kitchen cabinet is, a smaller version of an armario, and maybe I saw some sort of visual reference that led me to that decision. And then let's see. Oh, it's about the same size as my head. So this is talking about the cooking pot, which earlier the player would have used as a helmet when launched out of the cannon at the Fettuccine Brothers circus. So this is just a reminder that that's how it's used. eos magnitudo feriadens ac mei capitis. So its size is almost the same, is nearly the same as that of my head. I'm only going to put this on if I really have to. Hunc mi hinduam modosi veri necesserit. So I will only put this on myself only if it is truly necessary. Only if, yeah, truly necessary. And then the pot, quotable is the word for the smaller pot, the cooking pot that you're using. And once again, this is just looking at visual references of images of the archaeological objects these words were meant to describe, at least according to that one source. And then ladder. Oh, it's being weird when I'm scrolling today. Ladder, Spyglass, and then when you do set something on fire to bring to the fuse of the cannon to light it, and you just look at the burning fire that's in your inventory, that's in your pocket, it's yikes, wah, and then it's already burning. I bet if you try to put it back into the fire or use it on the fire again, it's already burning. And then I wouldn't want to set that on fire if you try to use it on anything other than the fuse. Illud urere nonne. So I don't want to burn that. And then the flaming mass, mason flagranto, so it's a flagrant mass. Masa is literally like a ball of dough or something, right? But it can then have the extensions of just like sort of an amorphous mass of whatever. So pretty literal translation for burning mass there. And then when you examine the prize, open up the prize from the cereal box, this is no prize. It's a small key with a finely engraved monkey on it. And I think it's repeated because when you look at it a second time, it doesn't repeat the this is no prize part. So, hoc non est premium, this isn't a prize. Imo parva clavis est quam magane simiae subtiliter e insculpta. So, on the contrary, it is a small key with the image of a monkey subtly inscribed. And then small key, parvum clave, and then after you, this is either after you make the soup or after you wake up after the soup takes you to Monkey Island. So I feel awful. Pessime miabio. And then when you're lying on the ground before you get up, after passing out from the spell, Guybrush just makes all these noises, and I didn't try to change or Latinize them in any way for this random noises Guybrush makes. And then let's see. Okay, so then, so this is, so more jokes for putting things into the pot. And if you try to put one of the t-shirts in the pot, I think I have enough fiber. I'll just hold on to this. So, the concept of dietary fiber, it's not one the Romans had, and trying to, using Neo-Latin phrases for it, or calquing, or just trying to find circumlocutions to describe dietary fiber, that wouldn't make this a good joke. I just had to think of a different joke. a different pun. But I thought maybe something that could work, like this connection between fiber and both dietary fiber and the fiber of fabric. I thought, pani, spread, sounds a little bit like panos, cloth. And then I found references to Romans dipping bread in soup, like lots of cultures do. So I came up with this. So mos estut panis iure madefiat, non quidam panos. So the custom is that that bread be soaked with soup, and not cloth. So hopefully the panis, panos, hopefully that works as a pun. You dip your bread in soup, not your cloth. And then you try to put your money in the pot. No way, I worked too hard for this money. Nolo, hac pro pecunia nimium laboravi. So I don't want to. I worked too much for this money. And then this cheap plastic compass is too neat to throw away. So you try to throw away the compass that Stan gives you. That always points back to his shipyard, which I don't know how that's supposed to work. He just has some gigantic magnet there that would mess up every compass in the region. I don't know. But yeah, this cheap plastic compass is too neat to throw away. Haec aquus magnetica etiam sin re vil atque plastica inclusast dom iacundast ut abicere none. So this magnetic needle, which is the Neo-Latin word I found for like a magnetic compass, this magnetic needle, even if it is enclosed in a thing cheap and plastic, it's so interesting, so pleasing that I do not wish to toss it away. Do not wish to get rid of it, and then throw it away. And then let's see. This seafaring literature could make good reading. I'll keep it. Fieri potestut hos libellos nauticos legere vening, ergo tenebo. So it may be that these nautical little books, that I wish to read these nautical little books. Therefore, I will hold on to them. And then it's hot enough as it is. Estiam satis calido. So I'm not quite sure. I don't know if this is like if you try to put the fire in the soup itself, or what provokes that. I don't want any of this soup. So if you just try to take the soup, hoc ius non nino sumere volo. So I don't want to take the soup at all. And then I paid good money for this, so I'll hold on to it. And then once again, I don't know which object this is the response for, but so hac pro re magnum pecunium pependi ergo tenevo. So I paid down a great amount of money for this thing, therefore I will hold on to it. And then just a drop. This is when you add the wine as a monkey blood substitute to the pot. Unum stilum tantamodado. So on one drop only. I'm adding one drop only. And then this is going to be good. I think this is what it says when you put the cinnamon sticks in, but hoc bono. This will be good. And that should be enough. So I think if you're I think the recipe needs 2 cinnamon sticks, or I don't know, but once you have the right amount. Ilud satos asividetur, that seems to be enough. And then, good thing I've got a million of these. This is referring to the roll of breath mints you have. And you still have the roll after you put some in it as a substitute for the mint in the recipe. Gaudio dom multos haberot hic tubulus nunquam auxauriator. So I rejoice to have so many that this little tube will never be exhausted. May never be exhausted. And then, oh no, this must be. No, this is what it says when you put cinnamon. Maybe this is going to be good. Maybe when you're still putting the wine in there. I'm not sure. I love cinnamon. Cinnamon me delectat. Cinnamon delights me. And then, about time I got rid of this worthless artifact. So this is actually what Guybrush says when you try to throw away the when you, I guess, and you can throw away the rubber chicken with pulley in the middle. So rather than trying to find like a good, translation for artifact specifically, I decided to do something more relevant to what it is you're throwing in. So, yo mihi tempus hanc awam nugatorium relinquere. So now it's time for me to leave behind this ridiculous bird, this nonsensical bird. Or even, nugatorius even has the meaning of worthless, of having no value, having no use. So it's actually a good translation for worthless specifically. And then, yikes, when the spell starts taking effect. Wah, wah. And then, I think I'm getting dizzy. Subito vertigine laperale virior. Suddenly I seem to suffer from vertigo. And then, this is then the narrator kicking in. So, moments later, the voodoo spell kicks in, turning the ship to an unknown heading and off on its mysterious voyage. Oh, wait a minute. I think I skipped something. Oh, oop. Overcome by the fumes, Guybrush quickly loses consciousness. So, Gaius halitu fetorique juris oppressos animo quito linquitur. So Gaius, oppressed by the vapors and smell and stink and stench of the soup, quickly loses consciousness. Is quickly left behind by his consciousness. And then moments later, the voodoo spell kicks in, turning the ship to an unknown heading and off on its mysterious voyage. So, momento post mixturum vodonensem confectum, navis ad incognitum cursum severtit, et in occultae quora proficiscitur. So, a moment after the voodoo mixture having been completed, the ship turns itself toward an unknown course and heads out into hidden secret waters. And then days pass. Nun nulli dies transiunt. So a few days, not no days, several days go by, and then some of the nouns, the prize, premio, and then now we're to. Oh, so now we're switching to a different location. Now we're to the the spot where there's the dam that you blow up to flood the lake. So you see, so footholds. From this screen, you can climb up onto the large cliff face where we were earlier, where you're throwing the rocks off. And I wasn't finding like a really good Latin translation for footholds. I don't think the Romans were big on like rock climbing, and so I don't know if they had a specific word for this. But if you look at the picture, these footholds just look like steps. They just look like stone stairs. So that's how I translate it. Scalas saxias, so stony steps. And then gunpowder, because you pour the gunpowder on the dam and then ignite it to blow it up. So puerum tormentario, so the gunpowder. And then for the dam itself, I used mole, which kind of just can mean like a pile or a heap, but in specific sources where the Romans do talk about blocking or damming up a river, this is the word that they use. They use this word to describe the pile of things that's impeding the course of the river. And then if you try to walk to the sun on the screen, you see the sun. The sun is an interactable object here because you can use the lens from you can use the whole looking glass as one of the multiple solutions for igniting the gunpowder. And so the sun's an interactable object, but if you try to walk toward it, ambulad sole, then sure, walk to the sun. Certe ad sol ambulabo. So certainly, I will walk to the sun. And if you try to look at the sun, I don't want to blind myself. No lo me caicare. I don't want to blind myself. And sole, the sun. And then you're picking up, so you see a note with a rock on it, and the rock is flint. And you might know that, you might examine the rock before or after you take the note. If you're picking up the note too, and then you take the flint, and you know it's flint, hunc silicon quoque sumo, I'll take this flint too. I'll also take this flint. But if it's just an interesting rock and you don't know what type of rock it is, hunc lapide iucundum quoque sumo, I'm also taking this pleasing, interesting rock. And then, the note under the rock, codicilos sub lapide, so the little letter under the rock. And then, I'm no geologist, but judging from these conchoidal fractures, I'd say this is a piece of flint. Non sum geologos, sed illis fracturis concatis adducor ut arbitrer hunc lapide se silicen. So I'm not a geologist, but from these shell-shaped fractures, that's what conchoidal means, I am led to judge this rock to be flint. And then flint, silicon, and then as I said, it's flint. Ut dixi est silex. I said it's flint. I'll check out this note while I'm at it. So if you pick up the rock first and then you pick up the note, hos codicilos quoquobiter aspicere volo. So this note I also want to look at in passing. And then flint works best with things made out of steel. So if you're trying to ignite the gunpowder by hitting the flint against stuff, it gives you the hint that you should use something, an object made out of steel for that, which can be the compass needle, or it can be a few other different inventory items. But cum rebus ferii silex magis prodest. So flint is more beneficial with iron things. And then rock on top of note. Lapidem super quotable. So the rock on the note. And then the path to the jungle. Wiad Sylvan, the path to the jungle. Path to the forest. And then the dam, Monet. And then on this screen, Guybrush is constantly remarking on how hot it is, which I think is supposed to be the hint about the sun being an interactable object as one of the possible solutions for lighting the fire. But so it is hot. So Roman weather terms, like it's always awkward to find like a good phrase for something like, oh, it's hot out. The Romans would describe like if the weather was nice, they'd say caelum sereno. So the sky is peaceful. The sky is serene. And then people sometimes in like Neo-Latin conversationalist circles, they by extension they take that to be the way to describe any type of weather. So caelum calidum, the sky is hot. But that's not, I don't know, that's not necessarily an attested phrase in classical Latin to say the sky is hot to mean it's hot outside that I've found. You do hear people complaining about the weather outside using nouns, so like or talking about coming in to escape from the heat, escape from the cold, and they use the nouns, calor and frigos to describe the heat or the cold of outside. So that's what I decided to use here. So Popeye, cuántos estic calor. So wow, this heat is so great. Such a great heat here. The heat here in this place is so great. It sounds very awkward in English, but I think it sounds better in Latin than, I don't know, if Guybrush just said the sky is hot, because I don't know. I know people use that phrase, but I don't know. I'm not convinced the Romans said it that way. But if anybody has evidence otherwise, it'd be interesting to see. But I think this translation using the noun calor works and makes sense. And then it's too shady over here. So if you try to use the hourglass standing in the wrong place, it's too shady. Nimos opacos est hic locus obisto. So it's too shady. This place where I stand is too shady, too opaque, too covered in shadow. And then river, flumen, and then the footholds again, scala saxias, and then note, quodicilos, and then the path downward, calan declive, and then path, inclining downward, the steep path, and then let's see. So here's the I guess they call it a work of primitive art here in the original game. But here's the art piece. That's the log balancing on a rock with another rock on it, and it's used as like a catapult that you're launching the rocks from by dropping the rocks down from below. So here's that work of art. Then when you look at it in English, Guybrush says, it's either an incisive representation of the futility of man, or it's a log and a couple of rocks. So of course in English, if you want to sound fancy and erudite and pretentious in English, you use a lot of long Latinate words. But of course, in Latin, everything is already Latin. You could try to sound fancy by using Greek words, but I decided to try to write something that was like just pretentious in its imagery. It was something that, overly flowery, overly over the top, and to make this feel pretentious in that way. So Hocus aut opus summa artis quo periculum generis humanin notante lanque fortunae librae incerte imposit astute representator aut modo stipes cum duovo saxis. So this is either a work of the highest art by which the peril of the human race, uncertainly placed on the swaying platter of fortune's scale, is astutely represented, or it's just a log with 2 rocks. So, yeah, so employing this kind of, I don't know. And of course, compared to a lot of actual surviving Latin, especially surviving Latin poetry, like if you're reading, Statius or something, this is not particularly, too over the top or too pretentious compared to like what it could be with some Latin authors. But hopefully, like Guyver's trying to describe the meaning of the artwork by just using another metaphor of fortune scales or whatever. Like, so like, I don't know. That's what I went with. I don't know. And it also, like, it almost felt plausible, like, this is something that's balancing or whatever. Maybe it felt like a connection that made sense. I don't know. It almost sounds like a plausible thing an art critic might say about it. And then instead of primitive art, I just decided to call it abstract art, which, and it's not, abstract, opus artis abstracti, it's not necessarily intended, abstract art as we think of it isn't a phrase used in classical Latin, although archaeologists use certain terms to describe art styles found in Roman artworks that are abstract, and maybe there's Roman names for some of them, but I don't think they'd apply to a sculpture. But anyway, but in a Neo-Latin context, I think, ars abstracta has been used to describe abstract art. Or at the very least, abstractos, with the meaning of non-literal, abstract from meaning. That is a classically attested use of that word that I think the meaning of abstract art would make sense to an ancient person reading that phrase. They get the meaning of it. And once again, I decided, to call it abstract art rather than primitive art. I don't, it's just, the portrayal of the cannibals in the story is definitely one of the, it just doesn't age well, and I'm just not trying to add any more grief to native Caribbean peoples, beyond what's already there. But I don't know. Okay, and then you can aim where the artwork goes. So you can push it and pull it, and that affects where your rock goes when you drop it down on it. And then it won't go further. So if you push it to its farthest extent, sic amplios movere non potest. So it's not able to be moved further. And then you can actually, a lot of people don't realize this, but you can see where you're aiming the artwork by using the spyglass on the screen, and so you can see exactly what it is you're gonna hit. So you can look out to see where it's aiming. Every time you aim it, you can look out to see where it's pointing. And the ocean is pretty from here. Hinc mare pulchrum ridetur. So from here, the sea seems beautiful. And there's some debris to the right. So if you have sunk your ship, you see the shipwreck debris, or you see your ship. There's some debris to the right, and there's my ship to the right. So et ilic dextra sunt sunt reliquiae naufragii, and there to the right are the remains of a shipwreck. There to the right are the remains of a shipwreck, or et illic dextra mea navis est, and there to the right is my ship. And then there's some floating debris where my ship used to be. Ecce reliquiae fluctuantes naufragii ubi mea navis nuper erat. So behold the remains, the floating remains of a shipwreck where my ship recently was. Hey, I see my ship from here. Papai hinc meam nawem videre possum. So yeah, so when it's pointed in this angle, that's when you can know for sure that you'll hit your ship if you want to try to do that. And then, oh, I can see my ship from here. What a hunk of junk. So yeah, this goes together. So you can see your ship. What a hunk of junk if it's still there. And then, oh, vilastruum quisquiliarum. So, vile pile of driftwood of random pieces of junk lumber or whatever, random this and that. And then let's see. And then there's some debris to the left. Laeva sunt reliquiae naufragii. And then there's my ship to the left. Laeva mea navis est. And the big tree on the beach to the right. Et dextra magnabor est in liture. And to the right, there's the big tree on the shore. And then I can see that big banana tree on the beach. Illum magnum palum videre possuin litere. So I can see the big banana tree on the beach. And then, wow, what a jungle. Papai, cum mirabilis est haec silva. And then there's a big banana tree on the beach to the left. Laeva magnum palum st in litere. And then the jungle is pretty thick. Silvas bene densa. All I can see is a bunch of animals eating each other. Itque sole res cum vidiost turba ferrar winter ipsas mutua carne vescention. And so the only thing which I see is a crowd of wild animals feeding amongst themselves on mutual meat. So this sounds very awkward, but this is a phrase attested in Pliny to describe like animal cannibalism, animals eating each other. He uses this phrase with eating on mutual meat, mutua carne, and then it is so. One of my grammatical resources said that with the phrase inter se, sorry, I paused the video. There's a lot of noise going on in the hallway. But yeah, so inter se, when the referent isn't something in the nominative or accusative, which, because I guess technically, yeah, turba is the subject of the sentence, and sperarum is, the genitive phrase going along with it. So inter ipsas, yeah, I'm still not sure about, because obviously ferarum is still the subject of the participial clause, going with vescention, but I don't know, it always gets tricky with say, when you have a long nested clauses in a sentence. what say refers back to. But anyway, I went with inter ipsas instead. But I might go back on that. Is anyone more, anyone who knows more about this exact grammatical distinction in this kind of situations can comment. And then, hey, I can see the lookout on Melee Island. Bye-bye, Seno Wigelen Melee Island, Widere Poson. Sorry, the lookout on Melee Island. Wow, I'm able to see the old watchman on Melee Island. I'm specifying like the old watchman, the old lookout, just because I was just describing him with Wigel, but there's also the sheriff of the town. I translated sheriff with as prefectos Wigelon, so the chief of the watchmen, which is a real position in Rome, to describe the person who is in charge of the night watch in the fire brigade, as opposed to like there's other words for sheriff. Geraifa from borrowed into Latin from Old English and medieval Latin, is the word where the modern word sheriff comes from, but it's technically refers to a shire reeve. That's technically what I think the sheriff of Nottingham and Robin Hood was. His job wasn't explicitly to be a law enforcement official, even though it sounds like that. But anyway, I think the more accurate word for what a sheriff is, for like a law enforcement official, prefectos Wigelong, and then but then for this word specific for lookout, I wasn't really using. I just called the lookout a Wigel. He's one of the watchmen, but because of in the game, there's not much of an implication of other watchmen on Melee Island, but because of the way I translated it, there's now this implication of there's a chief watchman and there's people under him. The lookout does say he was appointed by Fester Shinetop, the sheriff. So it makes sense. But anyway, I just felt I had to specify. I see the old watchman on Melee Island. I see the character that you interacted with, where there's lots of jokes about his age. So just to make that clear, who Guybrush is seeing. And then so I can see, look at Melee Island. He's looking right at me. Queen me rectaspicit. Who in turn is directly looking at me. And then what I wouldn't give for a nice big water balloon right now. I don't know if Guybrush thinks he can launch a water balloon all the way to Melee Island from Okeanon. I don't know. It's kind of a weird line, but utilum mihiesem magnus folis aqua plenos quen eum jacane. So would that there were to me a big bladder filled with water, which I might throw at him. So that's that. And then, okay. So now we're back on the ship. Specifically, we're in the crow's nest of the ship here, and so the way back down to the ship, you hover over it, walk to ship deck, and then so it's pontem navis, the bridge of the ship. But pons is the word used for all the decks of the ship. It was the general term for a level of a ship that they use, the bridge of a ship. Although we think of that as a specific part of a ship, but yeah. which I guess is technically maybe the Brit. I don't know. Maybe I don't know the parts of modern terms in English for parts of the ship as well as I should. But yeah, so you're in the crow's nest, and you're looking at the pirate flag, which is your replacement for the pressed skull from the recipe. But what a fine-looking flag! And then notice, so the name of the flag here in the game, they call it a Jolly Roger, and I just ended up calling it, Vexillum Piraticum, just a pirate flag. And that's what most of the modern translations do as well. They just call it a pirate flag. Of course, Jolly Roger, there's a lot of debate about the origins of it, with a lot of people suggesting maybe it's from French, Joli Rouge, because early pirates would have had like a, red flags, or the pretty red. But I don't know. I still wanted to have a reference to Jolly Roger, but I put it in a context where it wouldn't be confusing. So Meat Hook's tattoo is also named Roger. So I don't know. So here's what I ended up translating this line as: "Quum formidolosum, quum formidolosum hoc vexillum imagine Rogeri Yelaris Suton." So how spooky is this flag with the image of Jolly Roger sewn on it? Or this flag sewn with the image of Jolly Roger. It's maybe implying that that's the name of a historical pirate or something. I don't know. I know I just wanted to try to translate the phrase Jolly Roger, even though it's just fun. With specific pirate lingo, even though it doesn't make sense in Latin, there's no no idiomatic like precedence for using these pirate phrases in Latin. It strikes me as funny to just literally translate these, pirate specific phrases literally into Latin, as I do with this next line. So, what a fine looking flag, shivers me timbers just looking at it. So I have Guybrush say, quo viso meae quidam trabes certe tremunt. So, which having seen, indeed, my timbers are certainly shivering, or certainly shaking. And to me, this feels like a funny, you might try to be translating this in your head, and you're like, and my boards are certainly shaking, but then you went, my timbers are shivering. Ah ha ha. What? And of course, it's only a ha ha moment if you're like an English speaker familiar with pirate phrases, which maybe not everybody playing this would be. But I don't know. This is one of those things where it felt funny to me to leave pirate specific phrases, because what else would I translate them? There's no equivalent like pirate lingo, so phrases associated with pirates that seem to exist within like Roman culture. So I don't know. So that's kind of where I went there, and then now suddenly we're back. This next group of things, we're back on Monkey Island. We're at the crack. We're at the big chasm in the ground where you find the ores, and so you're looking at a log on one level of the cliffside where you tie a rope. So look sturdy, firmo svidetur, and then a sturdy stump, firmum calide, and then look strong for a strong branch. Validus videtur, validum ramo, a strong branch. And then if you try to use a rope from the top to try to just like grab the oars, I don't think I can lasso them. Neque laquio me puto pose ilos remos captare. So I don't I don't even think I could. I don't even think I could snatch those oars with a lasso. Not even with a lasso do I think I could snatch those oars. And then it's a pair of oars. Ecce gemini remi. Behold, twin oars. I was tempted to try to, since the word for oar, Remus, sounds like the brother of Romulus and Remus. I was trying to think like a more elaborate Romulus and Remus joke that would have been, I don't know, would have been a distraction and taking away from actually translating what's there. But so very subtly, the pair of oars, Ecce gemini remi, twin Remuses, twin oars. So I don't know, I don't know what that's even supposed to mean, but literally it's two oars. It's a pair of oars, twin oars. But if it somehow evokes people, I don't know, almost has the shape of a pun about Romulus and Remus, maybe that works. I don't know. Oars, Remus, and then no bananas here. If you try to use your banana picker on this tree here in the chasm, hic nullae sunt alienae. So here there are no bananas. The rope's not long enough to reach the canyon floor from the tree. Funis est parum longus nequam arboris trunco fundum hiatus attingere potest. So the rope is not long enough, nor is it able to reach the bottom of the tree, nor is it able to reach the bottom of the chasm from the trunk of the tree. So the rope is too long, nor is it able to reach the bottom of the chasm from the trunk of the tree. And then I'll try it with that branch. But then it'll automatically, if you try it to the trunk, it'll automatically correct to tying it on the branch. So, quin igitur eum ligo cirquilum ramo. So why not? Therefore, why don't I tie it around that branch? And then tree arbore. It's spooky, and I'm not going further. So this is what happens if you're at the bottom of the chasm and you try to walk off to the sides. And then so maybe I over-translated this line again, making it more clear than it needs to be what the situation is. But iri nimis procula fune nolo hic enam hiatus meteret. So I don't wish to go too far away from the rope for this crack scares me. I guess it's spooky. So it scares. It's and I specified I don't want to go too far from the rope. Oh, that makes sense. I see why I translated it that way. And then what's down there in that crack? Quid est illic in hiatus fundo? What is that in the bottom of the crack? And then let's see. And then let's see. Door. Oh, so we're back on the ship. Ostion, and then hatch. So this is the. Oh, so yeah. Once again, like the hatches of the ship. I wasn't finding a good word for that, so I was just talking about the places they lead to. So inferiorem ponte. So to the lower lower bridge, a lower deck. And then the gunpowder, you have to put the gunpowder in, I think, the nose of the cannon, or the nozzle of the cannon instead of in the back. So there's no place back here to put the gunpowder. So I was able to translate this very alliteratively. Pulvis in posteriore parte poni non potest. So the powder in the posterior part I cannot put. And then this isn't going to work. So I think this is what it says. If you try to do something with the cannon, that isn't correct. Hic non est lios est rectos osos. So this. Why did I put non there? Why not? Sorry, I'm just restructuring the sentence. I'm not sure why I structured it that way. Hic rectos usos lios non est. So this is not the correct use of that. And then there's no fuse. Nullos est funiculos. And then, the cannon, tormento. And then Déjà vu. So, I don't think there's a classical Latin attested phrase to describe déjà vu. In sort of, in sometime in the 19th century, or maybe early 20th century, there is a scientific Greek name that some doctor somewhere tried to use to apply to the phenomenon of déjà vu. So promnesia, based on the analogy of amnesia. So instead of not remembering, it's like remembering beforehand. So and I think in modern Greek, this is the word that's used to describe the phenomenon of déjà vu. At least I think so. I found that in Wiktionary as a modern Greek word. I don't know how common it is. But I don't know. It's one of those things you can't find a good Latin translation. It's like, does a Greek translation exist? And so I'm using the Greek here. So of course modern Greek, but promnesia videor affectos esse. So I seem to be affected by promnesia, by déjà vu. And of course, you say déjà vu when you're climbing into the cannon, right? Because you did this earlier at the circus. So when you're using the cannon again, that's why he says it. And then this isn't going to work. Hic non est alios rectos usos. Oh yeah, that's that same phrase again. Why is my word order so weird? Before hic non est. I like that word order better that I did there. Maybe I'll hic non est. Hic non est alios rectos usos. Yeah, so this is not of that the correct use. Yeah, I like that. And then I have no desire to blast myself out to sea. So if you're not at Monkey Island and you try to shoot yourself out of the cannon, Guybrush won't do it. In mare me mittere non cupio. So I do not desire to send myself into the sea. And then no way, I'd crack my head open when I land. So if you're at Monkey Island and you try to get in the cannon without your helmet, without the pot on your head. Minime, in litus saxosum praecipitatos capota fringo. So, not at all. Having fallen headlong onto the rocky shore, I would break my head open. And then it's much too dangerous to climb out there for no reason. So if you're not launching the cannon, and you're trying to climb out onto the cannon, it won't let you. And so, sine causa nimis periculose tormento vascenditur. So, without cause, a cannon is ascended. A cannon is climbed too dangerously. And this is idiomatically how you describe something as being too dangerous. There's lots of examples of this kind of phrase where you use the adverb and the passive verb. So to say something is done too dangerously, to mean that it's dangerous to do it. So without cause, a cannon is ascended too dangerously. And then, the cannon nozzle, nasum tormenti, the nose of the cannon. And then it's tied down. If you try to pick up the rope ladder, I guess I decided to specify ad mal valigatai sunt, so it's tied to the mast. And then for rope ladder itself, I just went with scala sex funibus factas, so stairs made from ropes, ladder made from ropes. I guess I couldn't find like an attested way of describing a rope ladder from classical times. And then let's see. Then you're looking at your mutinous crew, right? That decided they weren't going to help you get to Monkey Island, so they're just sunbathing on the deck of the ship. So you look at it, what a bunch of lazy pigs. Hunkene gregum parkour wignavoro. So this group of lazy pigs, pretty literal. The ne, so hunkene, using like an accusative exclamation and putting ne at the end of like hunkene or hokene. You see this sometimes in Roman comedy. So it's almost like an implied question, like, can you believe this thing? Hokene. I think there's a character in either a Plautus or a Terence play that says, hokene saeculum, like this generation, complaining about the youth. What a bunch of lazy pigs. And then one of them says, what was that? Nothing. And so Guybrush won't own up to what he just said. Quid dixti? What have you said? And then agone? Nihil. What, me? Nothing. I guess I don't know why I felt the need to add the agone part. I did. And then if you try to use the rope on them, what I wouldn't give to be able to hang them. Eos equidem suspendere velem, sed fieri potest ut hoc fune mihi sit aliud opus. I don't know why it's interesting that I'm not sure why I added so much to it, but I would indeed like to hang them. Suspendo. This is the word used to describe, death by hanging as a punishment. Or not necessarily, I guess it doesn't imply death, because I guess maybe the Romans would hang, choke people with a rope, but not to the point of death as a form of punishment too. I would like to hang them. But it may be that there is another use for this rope. So I don't know. I guess maybe I just thought that was a funny joke to add on to there. Like, I'd like to hang them, but I might need this or something else. So I don't know. I don't know anything. I made it longer. I guess it works. It's funny. And then I don't feel that doing this is going to help the situation. and I don't know what that's in response to, but sic agere mea sententia non prosit. So to do so, in my opinion, would not benefit. And then I have a feeling they're not the ones being used around here. Oh yeah, if you just try to use them, yeah, I have a feeling they're not the ones being used around here. So I had to come up with a joke that would work with the word I'm using for use, which is adhibe. So non videntur ad ulum re sadhibitur esse. So they don't seem about to be. They don't seem about to apply themselves toward anything. So this is the pun I came up with. To use se plus adhibio means to like apply yourself to something, to put yourself to use in a situation. So yeah, so they don't seem to be about to apply themselves toward any matter. And then let's see, and then I don't think violence is the answer. Advim ne descendamos. So let's not descend to violence. And maybe that's a direct quote from something I can't remember now. Although it'd make me feel better. I don't think violence is the answer, although it'd make me feel better. Advim ne why can't I say this word? Descendamos et iomsi sic agere me valde delectet. So, yeah, let us not descend into violence, even if to do so would very much delight me. And then, once again, what was that? Quid dixti? Nothing. Egone? Nihil. And then, yeah, the mutinous crew, nautas seditiosos, so the seditious sailors. All right. And I think next part is Guybrush's attempted motivational speech to them before the mutiny starts. And I think maybe I'll save that for next time because I've been talking for quite a while. So I'll stop there. All right. Well, walete.